Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks. So this is a tutorial for this bucket hat modelled by the lovely Joan here. Now this is a kind of granny bucket hat with a normal brim, and this is made with some yarn that was sent to me in Happy Mail, and I don't have a skein to show you. I have just the band. It is I Love This Cotton. It is beautiful. It's an Aran weight, a 4-weight cotton. So in this country we don't often see 4-weight cottons. If you find one, you're lucky, but I have one in my shop, which is hobbyrocks.co.uk, and it is the Savannah, the Stylecraft Savannah cotton, but it's not colourful like this one. The one that I'm going to be doing my tutorial with is the same yarn as this, but it's called denim, something denim, and is this the band for it? I did have another one. This is, heaven knows, can't really okay, let's put the glasses on. Am I going to see it? No, this is the brightest one, this is that one, but the other one is denim. So the reason that I'm coming on and showing you the tutorial, I want to just give you a few words, because when I made this one I used a 5.5mm crochet hook, but I've got a feeling that I used a 5.5 for the crown and then I dropped to a 5, or I might have made it with a 5mm crochet hook. When I do the tutorial I use a 5.5 and it does come up a bit bigger, so this one is too big really for Joan. It fits me. I'd model it, but they look hideous. Oh, okay. Don't laugh. They do. Hats don't suit me. They look hideous. So here we go. This is how it looks on me. It fits me perfectly. So what I'm going to say then is, sorry Joan, while you're making it, if it doesn't look too bad actually, maybe it doesn't look good when I've got my hair up, I don't know, but when you're making it, when you get to see how it's coming, this part here, if it looks too big then you need to drop down your hook to maybe a 5. The smaller the hook, the smaller the hat. So if you wanted to make it for a teenager or maybe a kid, then you just drop your hook size down. But if that means your yarn is too stiff, you can also go down the size of your yarn, but obviously it just gets smaller and smaller. Now I will show you on the tutorial what you can do if you can't get hold of Aran weight yarn. You've only got double knitting. I will show you how to get around that, and it works. So also by dropping down the crochet hook size a little bit, it's not quite so drapey. It does get a little stiffer. So that's all I wanted to tell you on this part. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to pause it. When I come back I'll start the tutorial. Well, I'll start the chat with you. Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this bucket hat, and it's ever so easy, and I'm sure a beginner could tackle it. So if you just bear with me a second while I get set up, but in the meantime, if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. I'll be right back with you and show you how to do this. Okay, so this yarn is a 4-weight Aran yarn, and this I was very kindly sent as Happy Mail. It's I Love This Cotton, super soft, super saving print, and this was a rainbow colour called Brights, and so I was sent this as Happy Mail. But if you were in the UK and you couldn't get hold of an Aran cotton, although I do sell one in my shop, I'll put a link in the description box to that. It's called Savannah. It's really beautiful, very soft cotton. If you couldn't get hold of that though, or you didn't want to buy any more yarn, I've used 2 strands of a DK weight. I've put them double-stranded, as I said, and made it with, or made the beginning to see if it works out the right dimensions. So I needed my inner circle here to be 4.5 inches, and as you can see, that's probably got to get to the widest point. It's exactly 4.5 inches, so that would work out really well. It would also make your hat just a little bit stiffer, because it is, and if it was too big at any point and not drapey enough, if you drop down one size of crochet hook, which I'll come to in a moment, it would be even stiffer. But this one is quite floppy. I'm just going to put this tape measure over there. I do expect it to roll off onto the floor at some point. So this is quite drapey and willowy, but I don't mind that. It does mean that the brim does kind of, I won't say pucker, but you know what I mean? It just is floppy. But it's actually very, very nice. I really like this one. I wouldn't really want it to be any stiffer, but I do understand if you do. So that's the yarn. The hook that I've used is a 5.5 millimeter. So as I said, if you find at any point it's a little too big, then just drop down to a 5 or a 4.5, or if you want to make it for children, you can even drop down to a 4. But of course it will make it sturdier, which, you know, some people might like. So for this tutorial, I'm going to use the same yarn, but in this beautiful blue colours. And this is called Denim Blue. It's part of the Happy Mail that I received. So I'm going to make it in this. And as I said, I'm going to use a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. You do need a darning needle, but thankfully, because I didn't change colour every round, which you can do, of course, I only had 2 ends to sew in, the one at the very top and the one at the very bottom, and also a pair of scissors. So that's what we're going to use. I'm just going to pause it again while I clear all of this out of the way and actually get started. Okay, so I'm going to leave a fairly long tail for sewing in, and I'm not going to start with a magic loop. I'm going to start with a slip knot. You can do that however you normally would. And also I'm going to chain up 5. So I want them to be quite loose, not tight. So if you're a tight crocheter, really try to make these looser, because you've got to get a lot of work into this ring that I'm about to form. So I'm going to slip stitch into that first one to make a ring. So we've got quite a nice size ring. You can use the yarn, excuse me, to pull it tighter anyway. So I'm going to work over the tail so I can do that. So I'm going to pop my hook into the center and pull up a loop. I've got 2 on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through both of those, and then I'm going to go into this left hand side post, and I'm going to just pop in, pull up a loop, and yarn over and pull through both. That is called a stack. In the US, they'll call it a stack single. We'll call that a stack double crochet. But that gets me up to the height for my, and acts as my first UK treble or US double crochet. And the yarn over, go back into the center of the ring and do 2 UK trebles or US double crochets. Now, when you're working with cotton, sometimes if this part here is too baggy, it can pucker, and I always undo that stitch and do it again just to make sure it's not got any bulgy parts. It's just the joys of working with a cotton yarn. I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to do a further 3 in the same ring. And I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to do another 3, but altogether you want to have 5 segments, so 5 shells. Normally when you're doing a granny square you'll have 3, but we want 5 this time. So I'm going to do another set of 3, and chain 1 and carry on. So I'll pause it then, and I'll come back to you once I've got my 5, and then I'll show you how I do my join. Okay, so I have my 5 shells or 5 segments. Now I'm going to, normally people might then chain 1 and do a slip stitch and slip stitch all the way along till they get to this chain space. I don't do that. I don't like the way that looks, and so I'm going to go into my first. The beauty of the stack stitch is that you get a stitch that looks normal. So I'm going to go into that first stitch, go through the 2 loops, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both of those. So now I have the same gap as all of my chain spaces, and I'm going to work into this one, which we are in now. And I'm going to start off by doing my stack stitch. So that's making a UK double crochet or a US single, going into this side post and pulling up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. So I've got my first treble, and I'm going to do 2 more. Of course, that's a double crochet in the US, treble crochet in the UK. Okay, so that is half of the stitch I'm going to do in this segment, because each one of these chain spaces is going to be treated like a traditional granny square corner. But normally I would not chain in between them, but I'm going to this time, and I'll tell you why when I get to that point. So in here, I'm going to do what we would normally consider a granny square corner by doing 3, just the same as I have there, 3 stitches. One chain and 3 in the same space. Pull it over if you have to, so that it looks more even. And I'm going to do a chain, even though if I was making a square, I wouldn't be chaining there. On my squares, I only ever chain at the corner, but I'm chaining in between each of my double shells. So I'm going to do another kind of granny square corner in this chain space. So we're just working in the chain spaces, and we had a total of 5 in our beginning, 5 shells, and we will now at the end of this have 10. I have to do one more in there. Okay, so we have our full one there, a full one there, and a half there. So in the next one, don't forget to do the chain in the between. Okay, so I'm going to pause this video, and I'll catch up with you when I get back to that very first one, and I'll show you how we finish this off. But it's a little boring just to watch me go all the way around. So that's all we're doing. We are doing 3, 1 chain, 3, 1 chain, 3, 1 chain, 3 in the same space, 1 chain. I'll catch up with you at this point here. Okay, so we're now making a hexagon, as you can see. So I've done my last chain, and I'm going to finish this corner, if you like, and by just doing 3 in the same space. Okay, so there we are. There's 2 sets of 3, and I'm going to go into the top of my stack stitch there in exactly the same way as before, and do a UK double US single crochet to join it. Okay, so now we have our hexagon, and things are going to get a little bit different, because we don't want to continue increasing into these here, otherwise we will continue to have a hexagon. So we're going to do our increases in the sides now, in these ones here, which is why I wanted a chain space, to make that little section there big enough to have 6 stitches in. Okay, so now in the points, we're going to just make our 3. So I'm going to start off with my stack as before, exactly the same, except I can't get that loop out the way to get in. That's probably gone a bit baggy. The trouble with cotton, sometimes if you it will kind of give you a baggy loop or a baggy stitch. I always undo that one. I don't want any kind of untoward large loops. It does, I don't know, it's quite, you know, cotton. That's what cotton does. So I always undo that one. And now I'm going to do 2 more in there. And at the moment I'm still doing my chain, and now I'm going to do the same as this here into the side. So I'm going to make 3, one chain, and I'm going to pull it over a little bit because it doesn't give it room otherwise, and do 3 more. See what I mean? There we go. It's got a pucker, that little bit there. I don't like the way that looks, so I'm going to undo that one. It's just the way that cotton does that sometimes. If you're kind of tighter on the bottom loops, it doesn't do it. It's just if you've got too much slack on that first part, it can make that large loop. I don't like it. So just personal preference, I just get rid of it. Okay, so we're going to do our 1 chain, and then in our peak we're just going to put 1, and it's kind of even in that hexagon shape back into a square, but it will still be a square with some cornering at the moment because we are still increasing. So this is my increase here in the side. If I go too fast, just by all means pause me and catch up. Likewise, if you are more advanced and you kind of understand this, then, you know, just fast forward me until you get back to the start again and catch up with me there. So don't forget the chain, and we're going to do our 1 cluster, segment, shell, whatever you want to call it, in our peak. Okay, let's stop and have a look. What we're doing now then is we're going to do a corner. We're going to call them corners because it's easier. Although they're not corners, are they, in the hat? But we're going to do our corner, our single shell, chains in between, corner, single shell, corner, and then I'll catch up with you here and I'll show you what we do next. Okay, so I've made it all the way round, and we're not quite so hexagonal now. We've still got these little peaky bits here, but we're all the way round, and we should have 15 now, 15 shells or whatever you want to call them. So I'm going to go into that top one there and do my UK double, US single to join. Okay, now this is our final increase round coming up here, so I won't chain in between my segments anymore. I will just chain in between my increases back to normal for me. So now we measure it, and it is roughly 4.5 inches. So as I said at the beginning, if you were doing your 2 strands of DK, you can see it's exactly the same size. The ends fell off my tape measure. That's I'll put that right in a minute. Okay, I'm going to pop that over there. I don't need that anymore. So in this round, we're going to do our last lot of increases, and we're going to do that not at this point. We're going to do it at the point just before our last increase. So I'm going to do my 3. That might be a baggy loop. Let's get rid of that. I'm going to start off the same way as before. So obviously this part isn't easy to show you, because when we get to this section here, it'll be a bit more understandable. So in this next one, because it is just before our increase, we're going to do an increase in there. Pull it over a bit. Make some space. So again, no chain in between because I'm not making space anymore. I'm just going to do one shell in there because that's the bit that was the previous point. And in the next one, because it's not before an increase, it's just 2, I'm going to do 3 in there. and then in the next one an increase. So we should, apart from that very first part, we will have 3 3 increase. Remember, no chaining in between apart from where we have the increase. Did I not do the increase? No. Let's go back. I'm getting carried away talking. So this is the increase. We've got 3 3 increase. So obviously I do want to chain there, and you have to keep your wits about you. It helps not to be talking about it as you're doing it. So I'm doing my increase. I could hear you all shouting at me. That's what it was. Okay, no chain. In the peak part, we're going to do an increase. We're not going to do any. We're going to do 3. Oh my goodness. I'm going to be quiet. Okay, so now we are going to do another 3, and then that increase just before this one. So I'll do this one with you, and then I'll pause it, and I'll catch up with you at the end. Okay, so now we've got our 3 and our 3. We're doing our increase because it's just before our previous one. This time I will do it. I blame the fact that it's getting really hot in here. So while I'm pausing it, I'm going to go and put some fan on or cool myself down. Okay, I'm going to pause it then. So what we're going to do now is 3 3 increase, 3 3 increase, 3, and then I'll catch up with you at that point. Okay, so there I am. I've finished all my increase. I'm back at the start again. So I just want to show you the yarn that I had made the first hat with. This is how much I had left. So that ball is, and I am not the loosest crocheter. So I just want to show you then, if I can find it, how many yards, or here we are. So we've got 140 meters, 153 yards. So you want at least that to make this hat. So bear that in mind if you are doubling up yarn like this one, that you will need, how much you'll need. So I just wanted to let you know that. Okay, so we have now finished our increases. There'll be no more. I just need to slip stitch, and I've done that a little tight. Slip stitch into my first one. Not slip stitch, but I'm going to draw up a loop and do exactly the same as I have been. I'll make my UK double US single. It's just a force of habit saying slip stitch. Okay, so now I'm going to continue just putting one shell in each chain space. Well, not chain space anymore, are they? They're each space. These ones are chain spaces. We didn't chain between them. So I'm going to start with the one I'm in, just as before. Don't want that loop to be too baggy because it will be ugly. We don't want an ugly loop. Okay, so what we're going to do now is our start as usual. I know that when you do this, it does feel as if you're a little further over, but you cannot see where that is. It looks just normal. So we're going to put a shell of just 3 UK trebles, US doubles in every space around. And this is now going to start cupping up to make it the bucket hat shape. But it does take a few rounds before you will see that. That's because it's a granny stitch and it really doesn't look, oh, gone in there as well. It just doesn't look as dramatic as on some hats. But it's going to, honestly, because we're now no longer increasing, it will do that. Okay, nice and simple. In between every cluster, just one cluster of 3. Which can be a little boring to watch me go all the way around. So I will pause the video and catch up with you when we get back to the start. There we are. Just one in each. You can see it's kind of getting more rounded shaping. Okay, so I'm going to pause it then. I'll catch up with you when we get back here and I'll tell you what to do for the rest of the body of your hat. Okay, so I'm all the way round and it's starting to get more of a round shape. If you should find you have any like little peaks and corners, then you need to make sure you haven't accidentally increased. Okay, so I'm going to join in the same way and I'm going to carry on now without any further increasing until my hat, I can't reach my little model. Okay, so this is Joan, this is my model. So when I put the hat on myself, it needs to come to my eyebrows. So once I get to that point where the granny stitches meet my eyebrows, then I'm going to start the brim. So for me, that was a total from the center of 14 rounds, 14 altogether, including that very first one. Once I got to there, that reached my forehead, and so I started on the brim. Okay, but that might depend upon the size of your head. We're all different. So you might have one more, you might have one less. So I'm going to leave you then to carry on without any further increasing, no chains in between, just granny segments in the spaces. And once you've got that to the top of your eyebrows, then come back to me and I will show you how to do the brim. Here we are. So when you first look at it, it just looks way too wide, but if I put it on top of the previous one, they are identical in size, so you know it's all good. Okay, so what we do now is we have got to our last round and we have joined. So now we're just going to work in our stitches. We're not going to go in the spaces anymore. So in my first one, I'm just going to draw up a loop. I'm not going to chain, and I'm going to make a UK double crochet, which is a single in the US, and I'm going to do that in every single stitch around. Every one. So if it will help you to place a stitch marker in your first one, then by all means please do that, but I shall find mine quite easily, so not to worry. But it is a simple round of one in every single stitch all around. Now it will look like it's puckering together there, sort of bringing it closer, but that's really what we want it to do, so that's fine. Okay, so that can be a tad boring, as I said before, so I'm going to pause this video and do one in every single stitch until I get back to my first one, and I'll catch up with you at that point. Okay, back at the start again, so I'm just going to slip stitch now into my first stitch. Okay, so now we want to make this brim, like a bucket hat, start to come out a little bit. So we're going to do an increase round. And what that means is in every single stitch, every one, even the first one we come into, I'm going to put 2 stitches. So the same stitch, the UK double or US single crochet, but I'm going to put 2 in every single stitch around. So we're just going to double our stitch count. Nice and simple. This hat is quite simple. Once you've done it a couple of times, you don't even really need to refer to notes. Sorry, I'm using a wall genie, and my yarn got stuck then. Didn't really, because it's getting quite low, the ball, it's kind of finding it a little harder to just, you know, move around. Okay, nice and simple, but it will be boring to watch, so I'll pause this then. I'm going to put 2 in every single stitch all the way around. We're doubling it, and I'll come back to you once you get back to the start. Okay, so I'm all the way round. I just need to now slip stitch into my first stitch. Now we're not going to do any more increasing, that's it. And we're going to just carry on doing 1 stitch in each one all the way around until we've got the brim the length that we want, and that's your personal preference. It also depends on the yarn, because as I showed you that little ball which has seemed to, oh here it is, that's all I had left of my first one, and I didn't think it might have gone round one more time, but I didn't want to chance it. Plus, when I put it on my head, the brim came to just where my, kind of shielded my eyes. But I know that some people like to have a longer brim, some shorter. So what I did here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rounds, including the 2 I've just done. So another 4 rounds, and I will have my brim the same length as this. But it's really kind of up to you how long you want it. Just a little word on this yarn. I absolutely love it. I loved working with it. It's beautiful yarn, and I just wish that I could get it easily in this country, and I can't. So, but you can use any cotton yarn that you want. I've shown you that you can double it up if it's a DK. You can even use one colour, one plain, just to kind of give it that different sort of marble effect. So now I'm just going to go round and do another 4 rounds of just doing 1 in every single stitch around, and that's going to be the end of our brim. So I'm going to pause it then, and I'll come back to you once I've done those, because they are all the same and you know how to do that. So I'll come back to you once I've finished the whole length of the brim. Okay, so I've made it all the way around, and what I'm going to do now is before I join, I'm going to cut my yarn. I'm going to leave a nice long tail, and I'm going to pull that through. So I know I've not finished off, but I'm going to get a darning needle, and I want this kind of large hole, but not too big. Now this is the part that I always kind of struggle on camera with. It goes straight in for me any other time. But let's just have fingers crossed. No, it's not going to, is it? Cotton yarn's not as squishy as acrylic, and it doesn't want to go in. But I don't want to get the one with a very large eye. There we go. We are in. So I'm going to show you how I then did my hat, because I wanted the edge to be completely unnoticeable. So here is our last stitch. I'm going to get my darning needle. There's our first one. I'm going to go backwards through both loops and bring that through. So I've made this part. Now I'm going to go into this one, and I'm going to go to the next bit down as well, because I find it anchors it a little bit better. So I'm just going to pull that through, and now as you can see, you cannot see that. So I'm going to hold that with my thumb because I don't want it to get any bigger, and I'm just going to go through this stitch here to make a knot. So I think I messed up there. I need a longer tail. So I'll do it again, leave that one in place. Just going to go through, and then I'm going to go back through my loop. I'm going to make that loop smaller, and I'm going to put my needle back through and pull it so it becomes a knot. And as you can see, the top looks like can't see the join. So now I'm just going to use the row of stitching to bury this tail. But when you do, you want to make sure it's not visible from either side. You can't see that. I'm going to go all the way along a little way and pull that. Okay, so you've just buried that. Now I'm going to go back the other way, but I'm going to split this stitch or go the one behind it. The one behind it looks good. And then I'm going to go back through the other way. And again, make sure you can't see that from the other side. And you can't. There we are. So that's now buried. You can go back and forth as many times as you want. I'm just going to cut that. And now all I need to do is turn my hat inside out and do the same with this tail, which I didn't leave long enough. But because it's not a magic loop, that doesn't matter too much. It's not coming undone, and it's buried inside. So that's how we do the hat. So I'm going to didn't do as many rows on the brim with that one as I did this one. I did 6 on this one here, but that's where my join was. You can see it on the inside because these two yarns are a totally different colour, and there's my little knot, but you can't see that from this angle, which is what I wanted. It's easier to show you on the coloured yarn. But if you find, as I think I mentioned it earlier, that if you find your hat is a little baggy when you start working on it, you could always drop down your hook size to a 5mm. I think if you're doing double up yarn, you won't find it that big anyway. It's sort of more sturdy, but you can always play with the hook size. And likewise, if you want to make it for a younger person with a smaller head, by dropping the hook size, you'll achieve that. Okay, so that's how I made my granny bucket hat. I hope you like this tutorial. Thank you very much for watching, and as I said before, if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye bye for now.